Tonight, Trump announced he plans to close the Kennedy Center for about 2 years for construction, starting in July. He writes, quote, "I have determined that the Trump Kennedy Center, if temporarily closed for construction, revitalization, and complete rebuilding, can be, without question, the finest performing arts facility of its kind anywhere in the world." And that comes shortly after we learned there are no Black History Month events at the Kennedy Center, where, remember, in December, Trump added his own name, of course, to the building. And I suppose that's not much of a surprise when you look at how this administration has been treating Black history artifacts and figures. The Trump administration told the National Museum of African American History and Culture to remove improper ideology and scrub exhibits that focus on systemic racism. Members of the administration have consistently minimized the horrors of slavery and discounted its foundational role in shaping America. Trump also removed memorials honoring enslaved people across the country. And it doesn't really stop at the museums. It's become pretty widespread. The Pentagon mistakenly removed and then had to restore after pushback Jackie Robinson's military biography. The same thing happened with Harriet Tubman's archives in the National Park Service. Trump also ordered National Park gift shops to remove items promoting DEI, whatever that means at this point. On top of that, for weeks, he's been subjecting a Black Congresswoman, Ilhan Omar, to a consistent stream of attacks and racist rhetoric. And just this past week, his DOJ arrested 2 Black journalists for their coverage of a protest in Minneapolis. And yet none of that will stop us from celebrating the ingenuity, artistry, and power of Black communities, especially on the 100th anniversary of Black History Month. Tremaine Lee is still here with us. He is also the author of 1,000 Ways to Die, The True Cost of Violence on Black Life in America. So, Tremaine, in spite of all of this, how are we celebrating this month? What are we doing?
You know, I think we need to, it should be our forever mission is to educate ourselves on the true role of Black people in this country. It's arguable that we are the most American of all, because in the founding of this country, they didn't believe in equality. They didn't believe in public schooling. They didn't believe in any of the things that Black people fought and died for, let alone that we're all equal. And so I think on this month and every month, we should be reminding ourselves, because the Trump administration has centered, at worst, a white supremacist ideal, at best, an anti-Black ideal. We need to remind ourselves of who we really are, right? And when we beg this country, you know, we say this isn't who we are, when we see the abuses of power and the stripping of rights and the violence heaped upon people's shoulders, that this is who we are, but we're also something else. I had a conversation years ago with a avowed racist, and he said, well, you know, those guys were just men of their times. But during those times, there were abolitionists, and there were allies, and there were people fighting for the wholeness of the American experience, right? For all of us to be included. And so I think we need to remind ourselves of that dual truth that we exist in.
How hard does that become when you have an administration that is actively trying to delete, erase, prevent the education of that very specific issue that you're talking about? I mean, they're trying to remove books from book shelves. They're deleting the profiles and erasing the profiles of prominent Black Americans. They're trying to make it almost taboo to celebrate anything to do with Black America and Black history in America. And so you're talking about the importance of that, and you have an administration actively trying to do and counter the exact opposite of that. It
is certainly hard on the best of days, let alone days like this. But lest we forget, after Reconstruction was torn down, we had the bloody summers on and on of Black people being lynched across this country, being pushed as far back into slavery as possible, that Black people built institutions and built schools and built businesses during the darkest and worst of times. And as we talk about this idea of a nadir, the second one, right? We're in that moment now. I think it's incumbent upon Black people and people who care about freedom and justice and America, like really care about it, to make sure that we are pushing to restore our dignity and humanity, but also the fullness of our citizenship. And that's why we still fight, because in reality, we haven't experienced the full breadth of citizenship in this country.
What do you make of these comments that we've heard recently from J.D. Vance, for example, talking about how white people no longer need to apologize for being white? A lot of the examples that have been mentioned already about books being taken out of curricula, or the slavery exhibit in Philadelphia being removed. It's about, like, people shouldn't be made to feel bad about the past. What do you make of that argument? Like, what's the subtext or the text there?
This is part of a long continuum here. You know, when we think about the Daughters of the Confederacy after slavery was torn down, taking control of the first thing they did, the school boards. and the books and the statues to remind white people of the greatness of white people, right? And the idea of painting plantation life and slavery as this good old jolly time, and that there were good slave masters. There's no such thing as a good slave master. But as long as you can make sure you seed those stories in the minds of the American public writ large, and you carve out and erase, Black history and our role in it, then it makes it easy to normalize the abuses, right? Whiteness was created in service of white supremacy, and all of these are extensions of that kind of white supremacy. And so it's not about whether this moment is necessarily different than the ones we've seen before. It's that they keep getting life and keep getting breath, and they keep getting normalized in the mainstream.
I think the other thing, too, is, like Black people, Black families have always had to supplement education at home. I mean, even under Democratic administrations or seemingly more friendly or diversity-minded administrations, there's still been a persistent feeling across the country that public schools or private schools have failed kids of color. And so I think even now when you see these things torn down, it's outrageous and it's painful for people, but they kind of dig in and they're going to still do a lot of the work that our families already do to affirm our own kids or our cousins or our neighbors, because we've kind of had to do that the whole time anyway.
I think what's so upsetting about the disregard for celebrating Black History Month is just that it's such a conscious choice. They want to do this. They want everyone to know that they are saying this does not matter. They are trying to appeal to a certain sector of the electorate. It's so deliberate because it's not that hard to celebrate Black History Month. And, so many different months that are celebrated by the administration, and just the political strategy of wanting this negative attention because they actually might believe it.
But it's easy to be anti-Black because a big portion of this country is already anti-Black. And so they're not risking anything politically. And one of my big concerns is, and we think about when we were young growing up with Black books and Black characters, making sure that we're centered in this, is that there are going to be some Black people amid the chilling effect of all the violent rhetoric around anti-wokeness and anti-DE&I is saying, like, you know what, tone it down and calm it down. And maybe we'll put our energies in assimilation more than carving out your rightful place in this country. And so that is a real concern for me.
Trymaine Lee, thank you, as always.
Thank you so much.
So good to see you.